Guys, Roland here. You know, our rational minds make it hard to understand that everything comes from one source, and everything is this one source, also known as the one infinite creator. Today, we'll do our best to make sense of it, and I have an amazing guest to talk about this particular conversation with. You get to meet them right after this. Welcome to Conversations with Roland, where the goal of this show is to learn life secrets through diverse experiences. I am your host, Roland Achenjang. Guys, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Roland. As always, I am super excited to record these conversations. And today is no different. Today with me is an amazing guest that you are already familiar with. They are a regular on Conversations with Roland, and they are here today to help us make sense of the fact that the one infinite creator is the source of everything, is one thing, and is also infinite. And I'm speaking about none other than my very good friend, Jim McCarty. Jim, welcome. How are you?
Roland, it's very good to be here. I'm doing fine. I'm really eager to talk with you about the Creator. And I hope that we can make a little sense of it because it's sometimes not a concept that's easy to perceive.
I could not agree more, especially when we try to use our rational mind to make sense of this. I have found it to be dang near impossible to explain. Most often it's our intuitive mind or maybe some spiritual transformative experiences that can help us make sense of this. Before we do get into this conversation, it's been so long since we talked, Jim. I just wanted to take a minute to ask how you've been over the last couple of months, how COVID's affected your way of life, if at all, and just maybe what you've been up to.
Well, COVID has affected my life by taking the staff that usually works here in the house with me to their own homes. They've all been working remotely, Gary and his wife Trish, and then Austin. So I don't get to see them very often. We do have channeling circles every 2 weeks or so I see them twice a month. Other than that, I really do enjoy solitude. So actually, this house has become a monastery for me. My gardens and my yard are where I spend a lot of my time, both in the mornings and the afternoons. And I grow a lot of flowers, and I enjoy the gardening. And I do writing and reading, and I've had a special writing project that I've gotten pretty much completed over the last 6 months. So I've been having a good time. Fortunately, I haven't had any problems with the virus, and nobody in my immediate circle of friends has had a problem. So we're fortunate there.
No, thanks for sharing, and that's wonderful to hear. By the way, I do remember in one of our first conversations, we talked about you going off the grid to do some reflective work many years ago. I think this was after you got your teacher's training. And so you're right, this sort of life of solitude is something that you're comfortable with, and you're certainly making the most of it. And I would even imagine if you weren't, given who you are and how much you understand about the Earth life experience, something like this, you would find ways to adapt and continue to be creative in whatever you're doing. So whether it's gardening or stonework, I know you like that too.
Oh, yeah.
Taking care of the cats. So.
Yes, I have 5 kitty cats that need some care, food, and some need medications because they're older now. They've got various afflictions.
Yeah. No, that's neat. And I'm glad you guys are also able to come back and do kind of a closed door channeling session with Quo. And for anyone who is watching this conversation, please reach out to L&L Research's website and read a bunch of those channelings. They're amazing. It's filled with a ton of information, and I like perusing through them when I have the time. Yeah. So let's talk about this one infinite creator. I'm kind of giddy and excited because, again, it'll be interesting to hear how you approach your understanding of this. And I mean, just right off the bat, what do you understand to be the source of all things that is one thing and also infinite?
Well, trying to define the source of all things is trying to define what the infinite creator is. And it depends upon what stage of our process of evolution you're talking about. In the beginning, there seems to have been just this infinite awareness that was not manifested in any way whatsoever. It was just intelligent infinity is the way that Ra described it. And at some point, it decided, it made a free will decision that it wanted to know itself better. And this caused it to create what we see as various logoi or stars in the sky. These are love entities, logos or love, or in the Bible it's described as the word. And these entities then were a creation of the Creator, and the Creator shined its free will through these entities of love. And what came out of it was what we see as light. And this light had photons vibrating at various angles and speeds of rotation. So planets were created and various forms of life were created. And eventually, as these forms of life went through the process of their own evolution, through the octave of densities 1 through 7 and into the 8th, then each of them made free will choices as to how they would proceed in their own evolution. These free will choices taught the Creator more about itself. They also gave each entity a chance to know more about themselves and the Creator, which is everything. So it all fits together. And eventually, as we all travel these paths through the densities of light back into unity with one Creator, we bring the fruits of this harvest of all our choices and every incarnation to the Creator and give them to the Creator. And they are ways the Creator knows itself. And we all once again become the one infinite Creator. And there is no difference between us. And once again, there is only intelligent infinity. This is apparently a process that's been going on forever and is a process that will continue going on forever.
It's so beautiful the way you describe it. It's like the introduction to this amazing experience or movie, which in a sense it is. And I like that. Now, what you talk about this intelligent, infinite awareness that just was right at the beginning, that eventually, after having this awareness, ask that proverbial question, what am I? Or essentially, how can I know myself more? And then created what you call the logos or the logoi, this stars, essentially.
Right.
And instilled in them free will. Now, with my understanding, these stars, each one of them contain within them essentially all of the Creator as well. Is that the same way you understand it?
That's true. All of the Creator is actually contained within every portion, or Ra said, every iota of the creation contains the complete one infinite Creator, which is a paradox. And there is so much in the creation and our lives of spiritual seeking that is a paradox. We seem separate from each other, and yet we're not. We are all one with each other. We're all one with the Creator. And so this Creator is everywhere. But Ra also said that it begins and ends in mystery. So there are some things we cannot understand with our minds. There are some things that you have to experience. And that, I think, is throughout all history, the various mystics and entities that have had enlightenment experiences or nirvana experiences, samadhi, kensho, whatever you want to call it in various cultures, they begin to understand more and more. They're illuminated and they feel more and more of a kinship or a unity with the Creator. And this is something we're all going through in one degree or another and will go through. And it's an endless process.
Yeah. And no soul left behind, right?
Right.
Now, when you say every iota of existence contains all of the Creator in it, it kind of implicates. So the implication therefore is that parts of the one infinite creator may be suppressed or not expressed in the way an iota of itself is being expressed. And I'm going to use myself as an example. So if you look at me, I don't look like this Microsoft Surface mouse, for instance, or this microphone, or you, for instance, Jim. So do you think there are aspects of the creator that are suppressed within the way my expression shows up in the world versus yours or this mouse?
I don't think it's suppressed. I think that we do not have eyes or minds or hearts to see and understand what we're looking at. If you get into subatomic particles, there are entire universes that could be revealed to us within your microphone, within your earbuds. If this is something similar to what you might call the fractals, where you can go smaller and smaller and smaller, or you can go larger and larger and larger, and you go in the same direction. You're going into the creator which exists everywhere, in everything. And his total power is within everything. We just don't see it because we're not evolved enough in our own particular expression of the creator. We're moving in that direction, and we'll get there.
We will. Like I said, this sounds so inspiring, and I love it. Now, to add to that, I think with my enlightenment experience, I saw that. I saw it as maybe something that was beyond just the physical, looking beyond the limitations of the physical. I was able to remember that the microphone I'm speaking to, you and myself, my hair cells, my eyeball, and my eye cells were all this one infinite creator being expressed in unique ways, interacting with itself to gain this experience and knowledge and understanding of what it is. But it's really kind of bizarre that when you look at a computer, for instance, you think there is no way this thing is aware or alive or exchanging information with its surrounding, including me. And that this surrounding, including me, is actually the same thing. It's kind of bizarre in a way.
That's true. We live in this third density. We are apparently at the third level of light, where we have a mind, a body, and a spirit. The first two levels is basically the mind, simple awareness. The second level of plants and animals has a mind and a body. As they become invested with the spirit, then they move into the third density. Here in our third density, we live in a situation which Ra described as beyond the veil of forgetting. Before we were born into this life, we had a larger point of view, spiritually and intellectually and emotionally, but we wanted to learn more. And it was discovered early in the process of evolution that if entities forgot that they were the one infinite creator before they came into the third density illusion, that there would be more of a chance they could discover this. They could polarize their consciousness in a way that would be more able to perceive the creator and be of service to each other as the creator than if there was no veil. Because apparently, before the veil, third density took a long time for mind, body, spirit complexes, is what Ra calls us, to evolve, to get past the third density, to be able to make it into the fourth density of love and understanding, to polarize consciousness, because they knew without doubt they were the creator. Everybody was the creator. There was no reason to try to change your situation. No reason, as Ra said, to act out of love or fear to go forward in evolution. If everybody's a creator, it's an Edenic. It's the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, it's like heaven.
Yeah. So progress was very slow. It took a long time for them to find any reason. They knew that was why they were there. They just couldn't find a reason to do anything about it.
Yeah, you know, as you're talking about third density and how difficult it was for souls to advance, again, the thing that comes to my mind is it's as though we were all already in heaven. And when everything is perfect, there's like almost no need to move forward. And it reminds me of one of my mentors' statement about the best, or about moving forward. Essentially, you need to be out of balance somehow in order to progress forward. Even if you're just walking, when you take a first step, you're kind of out of balance before you take your next step, which is back in balance. And that's how you progress forward. And so, do you think the veil of forgetfulness was a way for entities to be a little bit out of balance, and that would motivate them to then seek answers?
Indeed. What seemed to be the situation then, after the veil, was that knowledge of unity was no longer available to the conscious mind, but still somewhere within the subconscious was this knowing, this feeling that we are all somehow more than what we think we are, that we are more than just an individualized, separated entity, separated from each other. And if you follow that feeling of there is more, then this is the beginning of the spiritual journey, where you try to figure out what more is it? How am I connected to everybody else? What's the meaning of life? Why am I here? And as you begin asking those questions, that is the beginning of the spiritual journey. And that's where the effectiveness of, as Ross said, polarizing our consciousness, wanting to be of service to others, wanting to see the Creator in everyone, wanting to serve the Creator in everyone, wanting to love the Creator in everyone. Now, that is something that takes a while to develop, but eventually all religions of the world have aspects of this desire to discover what God is, or where God is, or how to be of service to God. And every religion has various ways of doing that. And Ross suggested that even though each religion is somewhat distorted as according to the real understanding of things, each one does have a pure path to the one Creator. So that's what we're all doing here, trying to figure out not exactly how to go to heaven, but how to make a graduation into the fourth density of love and understanding, which is where we are now. We're at the end of this third density cycle. And now every person who passes from this life has the chance to walk into the light. And that light gauges our energy systems, our chakras, to determine how well we've done in seeking and serving and expressing that one Creator to everyone around us, and how well we've begun to understand that we are all one. We're not separate as we seem to be. So this is the whole process, and it's because we seem to do better when it's more difficult, when there's a veil there that keeps us from knowing it. We subconsciously want to know.
Yeah.
So that polarizes us and gets us going.
That in and of itself it's kind of funny, and also a paradox that we seem to do better when things are a little more difficult, which it's true. It pushes us to the extreme. And I would just like to say this for anyone who is listening to this and kind of wanting to understand a little bit more about the different densities, because Jim has mentioned the third, moving on to the fourth, which is what we're doing right now. Please take a moment to go and listen to a previous conversation I recorded with Jim, where we went through our 8 densities. It's about an hour and a half long. It's gotten some pretty amazing reviews and comments. And I invite you to definitely check that out. Also read the Raw Contact, any one of them, and get this information there. So, yeah, Jim, I could not agree more with everything you're saying. And this question that I want to ask you is kind of difficult to ask, but I'm going to ask anyway. This awareness that was the beginning of everything, right, before it even asked the question, and also that is the source of everything. Do you know what it's like in its purest state? Many people call it energy, but how do you think it's expressed in its purest state? Just being, or being aware?
That is really hard to say, because as Ross said, this whole process begins and ends in mystery. So what you're talking about is the mystery of the Creator. And we can only hypothesize and try to figure it out. Intelligent infinity is what Ra called it. So there is no end to it. We can figure that's probably true. And that it is intelligent, that it knows. And what does it know? Well, it knows everything that ever came before, what's come now in our particular octave of experience. So it knows an infinite amount of information, and it knows everything that has made it what it is up to this point. And then it knows that there's more. And how shall it discover more of itself? By making another creation. The last one seemed to work out. Let's try it again. So,
It reminds me of just this kid experimenting with a bunch of stuff that is all aspects of itself.
I think you're probably right. I mean, it is truly a paradox that this infinite intelligence that has so much experience recorded in its state of being would want to know more, just like a child growing up explores the world around it and grabs this and that and tastes this and that and does this and that and learns to walk and all of these things. But this is a child upon a scale we can't even begin to imagine. This is a child that knows so much more than any of us can even imagine ourselves. And yet, it has this curiosity that it wants to become more. And it knows that it can do that by creating what we call the infinite creation. All these stars in the sky that are forms of intelligence, the various logoi that have all this history as well that the Creator has given to them as memories. And they can begin to create the creation that we have. And we can all play our part and evolve into whatever we are here in this illusion and begin to dream of going further into the fourth and imagine what it's like going further. You know, we are all also seekers of truth, just as the Creator is, seekers of knowledge of itself. We reflect that. We are the Creator. Each of us is the Creator. And we all have that innate desire to know and to grow and to serve and to be. So we reflect that in one way or another, more or less effectively here in this third density illusion. So that's where we're all, as God, as Ross said, we're all gods in the making, young gods. You know, we got
No
a lot
kidding.
to learn, but we are still the Creator.
No kidding. The thing you said there, Jim, I particularly appreciate is that we are all mimicking the Creator in one form or another. And this is so true. And we can kind of shift to discuss this a little bit more here, particularly in the notion that within us is an infinite number of experiencing, cohesively working together to express one body, for instance. And I'm talking about the trillions and trillions of cells that we have in our bodies. And within each one of those cells, you have, quote unquote, you know, ribosomes, mitochondria, etc. All these things that are expressed within each cell as well. And these cells are not the same. So we have cells in our fingernails, cells in our eyeballs, cells in our hair that aren't expressed in the same way. But then put together, all of them now create Jim McCarty or Roland. And they're working together cohesively, expressed differently, but working together. And it's so interesting that in the happened circumstance where we were trying to identify cells of yours, we could take any cell and do like a DNA test, and we would say, oh, this is Jim, whether it's a hair cell or a fingernail cell or a toenail cell, and still end up with that conclusion. And just like you said, do you see this as mimicking the way the infinite Creator is expressing itself as well?
Oh, yeah. We are little portions of the Creator, and we have various ways of expressing our identity. Ross suggests that each of us is unique. We are all the same too. You know, most of us have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, a mouth, and all that. But we're all unique. There is no other entity in the universe exactly like you, or me, or anybody. And if you all also take it further with every creature, all the animals and the birds and the plants, you can do the same thing with them. And think of what an amazing creation it is that each of us has all these little particles that identify us as being unique and a certain type of being. And we all have the ability to learn in one way or another and to grow. And we all live on some sort of food stuff. We are all given light and life by the sun that shines its light love to us. Our Mother Earth provides us with food to grow. All of these systems, all of these animals and creatures and beings work together and give the Creator ways of knowing itself. And all of them are also evolving. Everything is evolving. Nothing is staying the same. It looks like things are the same, but they're not. From one moment to the next, you cannot put your foot in the same river twice. It's a different river, a different life, a different experience. So it's just amazing if you just stop and think about that. I sit in my living room, I look out at the bird feeder there, and the birds, how they come and they land without thinking about where they're landing. And they hop from one perch to another without thinking about it. And they come in lickety-split, and all of a sudden they're stopped. And they're pecking away at the food, and they're getting the food. And you look at every animal, you look at squirrels, the way they operate, they jump from one limb to another limb. How did they do that? From one tree to another tree. It looks like our second density animals use telepathy. I'm pretty sure they do. But how all of this creation comes together to function, to give the Creator ways of knowing itself is truly amazing. And that all of these systems that we call people or animals or plants have these ways of propelling themselves forward in growth and in life and in searching and in seeking. And it's just absolutely amazing how the Creator can express itself in an infinite number of ways. And we get to be part of that.
No kidding. It really is. It truly is amazing, Jim. And I have felt the same way, just observing all aspects of life and trying to marvel about how it works. And it could be something as mundane as frying plantains or frying eggs. And this is true. The other day I was trying to appreciate just what it takes to fry eggs. A heat source, and then a pan, and then like vegetable oil and eggs. And many of these things don't exist naturally. Like you have to convert something into something. Let's take vegetable oil, for instance. I was trying to imagine who's first came up with the thought or idea to extract oils from, peanuts. And then who thought they could heat that oil to a certain temperature and then, like crack an egg and mix it and then throw it on the oil for it to fry to a certain amount of change that you would then be able to consume as fried eggs. Whether it's scrambled over easy, all of these things are infinite ways you can experience peanuts as oil, peanuts as oil that's heated, peanuts as oil that's heated with eggs on top of it, eggs that you fried in different ways, and then plus the pan that you actually have to fry all of this in. And it's easy to see how you can get lost in the infiniteness of which any one unique aspect of the Creator can be expressed. And it doesn't stop there.
I know. It's truly an infinite process. It's all been developed over thousands of years. We have a highly technological society, but and in some ways it seems like that technology has taken us away from the concept of it all comes from the Creator. It all is the Creator. But if you really start exploring it like we're talking about here, it can also be an avenue or a way of rediscovering the infinite nature of the Creator and how it's being expressed technologically. And yet it's more than technology. We're more than human beings. We are all the Creator. Everything's the Creator.
Oh, absolutely. And, to add to that, Jim, what I've come to appreciate is that because everything that is in existence, that we can witness, experience, touch, is this Creator being expressed. I'm still working on this, but I'm beginning to appreciate that if you study any one avenue of these things, you're eventually going to be revealed this infinite information that many of us in the spiritual community or on the spiritual path eventually tap into. It could be as simple as studying a rock every day, or a leaf of a tree, or technology, as you said. These are all the Creators being expressed. And every other subject that is in existence, whether it's English or French or philosophy, All of these are ways the creator is expressing itself. And so a discerning person who is very passionate and focused in trying to understand any one of the subjects eventually will also, I truly believe, tap into this same paradox that we're trying to understand here as one thing being infinite and what it's doing, creating all these infinite aspects of itself to help understand itself even better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are people in all fields of endeavor, scientific exploration, or whatever type of a way of life they have, that if you're open to the larger perceptives and the perspectives, that there's a way that you can discover the meaning of life and your part in it, in whatever field you happen to be plying your trade.
No kidding. Oh, goodness, Jim, this is so much fun. So as we're trying to understand this one infinite creator again, what we've kind of established, or at least what I've come to understand, is using our rational mind, it's really tough. It's really tough to make sense of this. And many times it's our intuitive mind or a spiritual or transformative experience, or maybe a near-death experience that helps us tap into this kind of knowledge and helps us remember. And so at this time, I don't know if you've had some experience like this that was supportive for you in understanding this information that you would like to share.
Well, I guess throughout my life, more and more meditation has been a way that has inspired me through the types of impressions or information that can come through meditation. Way back in 1961, when Don Elkins, who was the questioner for the Raw Contact, began his first channeling circles. The group of extraterrestrial entities that channeled then were called the Confederation of Planets in the Service of the Infinite Creator. And they said that meditation was the most available means for every person to discover more of their own nature and their purpose in their lives. Because in some fashion, silent meditation is a way in which we can listen to the Creator within us. A dialogue of some kind can be developed, whether it's words or feelings or directions to go or emotions to help us grow. These kind of bubble up from the depths of our being to help us on this spiritual path that we are all on, whether we're conscious of it or not. So when I joined Don and Carla in December of 1980, I had been coming to their meditations, and in these meditations, these were channeling meditations, and information from various planetary consciousness from the Confederation of Planets would speak. And at that time, they were dealing with a fifth density entity by the name of Latui. And Latui was reflecting and repeating some basic information that our creation is part of one great original thought of the one infinite creator. And we're all part of that. So that type of a framework was something that we were dealing with at the time I joined Don and Carla. And they had started off with Haton, which was another planetary entity that had basically the same things to say. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, the Raw Contact began. And the three of us were in this experience with those of Ra, who gave us information through the trance state that Carla achieved, where she was able to leave her body and allow Ra not to inhabit it, but to use it from a distance, shall we say, to make words that would respond to Don's questions. And this was an experience that was truly an enlightening experience, because Ra would answer any question we had to offer as long as it didn't infringe upon our free will, which would be to tell us something about our future. They felt that our free will would determine what our future would be. And so we were able to ask, Don asked 2,600 questions over 106 sessions in a little over 3 years. And this was truly enlightening in that it gave me so much more to think about and to put together as puzzle pieces as to how the creation works and what my part in it was. So this was an experience that was totally unique. I mean, we all have the unique opportunity to pursue this understanding in our own way. But I felt so blessed and privileged to be able to be in this contact because, I mean, imagine you have one of the ultimate gurus of all time, of any religion on any planet, anywhere, available to answer your questions. It was truly amazing. So I think, whatever else has come from my life has been fruit of that particular contact with those of Ra, which was what they called a social memory complex. That means that they were able to graduate from their third density into fourth on the planet we call Venus. They had a total of 38 million people on their planet, and 6.5 million were able to graduate to the fourth density as the social memory complex of Ra. And the social memory complex has all knowledge shared. If you speak to any one of them, you're speaking to the whole complex. So every memory from every incarnation they ever had was available to everyone. And so now Ra is of the sixth density. They've progressed through the fourth, fifth, and into the end of the sixth. So they've had a lot of experience, and they were willing to share what we asked about, as long as it didn't infringe on our free will. So that was an experience that was truly enlightening for 106 sessions, and a great privilege and honor as well.
Man, that experience is legendary, Jim, because it's affected not only you, but so many people who have come in contact with your book and the work that three of you did and published. And I, for one, am one of them. It's so fascinating when I came in contact with the information that you published, which was just last year. And I found it so true, so fascinating, so detailed, that it supported a lot of what I came into contact with or remembered, in 2018 when I had my own personal experience, which was, and I love that you threw this out, as a result of a daily meditating practice that I started way back in 2013, 2014. And I sound biased, but it's so true that meditating to me is probably the most effective means to tapping into this information and knowledge for so many reasons. And I don't mean to digress here, but one of them is, if you think about the sages that we look up to, whether it's Buddha or Jesus Christ, etc., and you ask yourself what they had available to them thousands and thousands of years ago when they tapped into this information versus what we have available to us today, you'll see that meditating was available to them. Not necessarily technology like you and I are currently taking advantage of, or religions for that matter, not to downplay the importance and the value that any one of these current aspects can't provide anybody on a spiritual path. But meditating seems to be like this tried and true ancient practice that has always been available and will always be available as long as you can breathe and think and sit in silence. And I mean, it works. It certainly works. So yeah, thank you for sharing that and kind of highlighting the fact that a lot of times this knowing it's really enhanced through personal experience, not necessarily an impart or not necessarily the information being shared to you by someone else, which I have met people where that has also been the case. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's cool. So again, you've talked about this, Jim, but I want to now transition and ask about the third density a little bit and why we struggle greatly in understanding this seemingly illusionary contradiction that the one infinite creator is also the source of everything and everything is still this one infinite creator. You talked about it already, but I think it's worth mentioning, especially for folks who are listening to this for the first time, why third density, which is, you and I as human beings currently interacting, why we struggle to sort of grasp this concept.
Well, As I mentioned, any third density is more difficult to begin with because it has this veil of forgetting. And we have to feel that reality of unity within ourselves subconsciously at some point so that we can begin our spiritual journey. And theoretically, and in many times it is true that as we continue going forward in our lives with this, who am I, what is life, where am I going, all of these spiritual questions, we do develop a spiritual path. And we are successful in opening our hearts in unconditional love at least 51% of the time. That seems to be the qualification necessary to make this graduation into the fourth density of love and understanding. So that 51% of our thoughts, our words, and our actions need to be focused upon trying to be of service to others in some way. And if that is accomplished, then we can graduate to the fourth density of love and understanding. But since we don't have understanding here, it is possible that sometimes entities are not able to move forward as they would wish to pre-incarnatively. We all have these pre-incarnative choices we make so that we hope during the incarnation we can realize those choices and move along a certain path of growth. And apparently, a great portion of the population of our planet Earth comes from other third density planets where they were unable to make the graduation there. And so when you don't make the graduation at the end of the third density cycle, then you choose another third density planet just beginning its cycle or in some portion of its cycle, and you incarnate there to try again. So our population of Earth is made up of a lot of people in this situation. They've already failed to make the graduation on their home planet, and they've come to Earth to try again. That's why we have 8 billion people here. We have a lot of folks here. But it seems to be a problem that if you have had this failure to make the graduation, it can repeat. Like we have thousands of years of war on this planet, that this bellicosity, as Rod described it, has been a feature of this planet and has made it more likely that we see each other as separate and we were willing to fight each other and kill each other. So we're, as a general population, all taken together as a soup, we've had a lot of trouble. And there have been a lot of efforts made by the Confederation to help the concept of the wanderer, an entity from a higher density that's a member of the Confederation, fourth, fifth, or sixth, incarnates on this planet and goes through the same forgetting process, hoping to remember why they're here to help the rest of the planet grow. So there's a lot of work from other densities and the Confederation that is attempting to help planet Earth and its population make this graduation. At the present time, Ross suggested that it doesn't look like there's going to be a large graduation because this sense of separation is so ingrained in so many cultures and so many people that it's difficult to move beyond it, to see beyond it, to imagine beyond it. But Ra also said that there is one great possibility that could our planet polarize positively in one fine, strong moment of inspiration? They said, yes, my friends, it is not probable, but it is ever possible. So there is hope, but the odds are against us as an entire population. It looks like there will be a significant number of entities. We'll need to find another third density planet. But hope springs eternal. And there are so many people now that are either wanderers or seekers of truth that want to be of service, that want to teach as you're teaching, as so many are teaching. We're trying to help each other out and work together. So we're always hopeful that this light that shines within us can be shared with others and awaken their hearts. They be opened in unconditional love, and we can help each other get home to the one infinite creator in the fourth density of love and understanding.
Thank you for that, Jim. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think there is a need for us to be concerned about the number of people who graduate from third density to fourth density? If we look at the grand scheme of what this one infinite creator is and how it exists, and that it's timeless and no soul is going to be left behind,
Right.
is there a need for us to be concerned?
I would say in the short run, the concern is something that moves us forward to try to help. But like you say, in the overview, there is no true concern because everybody will eventually learn these lessons and will graduate to the fourth density somewhere, whether it's here or other Earth planets. And we will all eventually make it into unity with the one infinite creator at the end of this cycle. And it will all have been a perfect journey. Everything that looked like a detour before is another opportunity to grow. So there is really no concern. All is, as Ross said, all is well and all will be well.
Okay, thank you for that. And that's something that I think I can speak for myself and say I struggle with, right? Especially after going through the awakening and really remembering that, my goodness, everything is okay. This is a game we're playing.
Right.
Even in the midst of all the pain and suffering and supposed hardships that we're going through, there's a beautiful designed reason behind all of them.
Right.
And it's made me question why I do anything, including having the podcast. Like, why do we need to have these conversations? Everything's okay. But on the other hand, there is a benefit to it because it's supporting both my conscious expansion and your conscious expansion. And if we go back to the understanding that there really is no real other, then if I'm growing, indirectly you're growing too. And whatever you're doing is helping me expand my consciousness. And with Ra and its current state of existence as a social memory complex, there's one thing that they always said that I found very, very beautiful. And I'm paraphrasing here, but it's something along the lines of existing as a, end of a sixth density social memory complex where they're sharing all information together and speaking to one of them, speaking to all of them, where all differences are eventually reconciled. I really appreciate that, where all differences are eventually reconciled, because it speaks to this balance, this state of homeostasis, this state of no polarity, where they can see that every action has like a balancing reaction, or every, nuanced is kind of balanced, where they're just back to neutral and balanced. And homeostasis is really the word that keeps coming to mind. I'm sorry. That's the medical, medical side coming to play here. But I've always found that very fascinating. And some aspect of me thinks that even though we here on planet Earth might be worried about the eons of years of wars that we're going through, somewhere in the universe or throughout, it's already balanced. We may not see that in our current state, but it is. It's kind of balanced some way. And I don't know if you feel the same way or what kind of reaction you have to what I just shared there.
Oh, yeah. Ross suggested there are no mistakes. Everything that occurs has a reason and has the potential for offering a way of growing. We can grow through the most difficult of times. In fact, Ross said that much of our growth does come in traumatic situations where there is something that seems to be out of harmony or out of balance, and we give it our attention, and we're able to achieve a harmony or balance just by the intention, because this is not the density of understanding. We're trying to get into the density of understanding in the fourth density. So what is important here is our intentions, that we hope to be of service. We hope to grow, and we hope to learn. And by hoping and having will and faith in the whole process, then it is a self-fulfilling prophecy, you might say. Will and faith are those two qualities that Ross said are most important for us. Our desire, our will to grow and to serve and to learn, and our faith that such is possible. These are what really propel us forward in our growth and our learning.
That rings to me as very, very true and very accurate. And it's kind of funny because in this podcast, we're trying to understand what the one infinite creator really means or make sense of the one infinite creator. But third density is not the realm of understanding.
Yeah.
That's funny. I love it. So I'm going to shift gears here a little bit, Jim. And I know this question is going to be super easy for you. But when you talk of the one infinite creator, right, it's basically saying this entity is expressing itself in finite number of ways that we can't even begin to fathom. And so for someone like yourself, would you mind speaking just a little bit, if you can, about this whole alien phenomena? Because you've had interactions with beings from different planets. And so what can you say about it, if you don't mind? And I'm just kind of curious.
Well, when a planet like Earth that has difficulty in perceiving, the population has a difficulty in perceiving their purpose and has so much war and disharmony, that quality of disharmony and lack of understanding amounts to what Ra calls a call to the Confederation of Planets in the service of the infinite creator. And that call is answered in a number of different ways. Sometimes a planetary consciousness would just send love and light to the Earth as a type of metaphysical food that can be ingested spiritually for those who have the desire to grow. Sometimes channels are established through, such as Carla, to give information. Sometimes incarnate entities come from these distant planets and incarnate, as I said, as wanderers. And sometimes we see the craft, the UFO craft, actually materialize in our third density skies. And these craft are seen by some people and not by others. Basically, they're seen by those who have eyes to see. As Jesus said, ears to hear, eyes to see. And Ross suggested that the basic purpose of these UFO sightings is to create an air of mystery and an air of questioning. So people ask, well, are we not alone in the universe? Are there other consciousnesses? If there are, they must be more advanced than we are. How did they get there? And so if we begin questioning this sightings of UFOs and the mystery of the UFOs, then Ross said we start to become aware of the concept of infinity. And that awareness then opens up the possibility of more spiritual growth for those entities that really investigate the phenomenon and open themselves to deeper or higher, whichever way you want to describe it, messages and purposes. So it's the concept of infinity that once it gets planted as a seed within our consciousness, then it can also become the motivator or enhancer of the spiritual path. And so that seems to be the purpose of the UFOs of a positive nature. There are entities that graduate into higher densities in a negative or self-service nature as well. And those UFOs are here to attempt to form a negative society. We have a lot of negative energies going, and they're hopeful that they can make contact with negative entities on Earth and make an elite, so that elite then gives directions for the rest of the planet to abide by. It is suggested that Adolf Hitler might have been contacted by such entities, and that it was the hope of those entities that his Third Reich could become the governing force of the planet, and that negative polarity would be established here. Now, I want to add that this negative path is only good for so long within this octave of densities. this negativity of serving the self and separating the self from others and controlling others and taking their power and so forth, goes through the fourth density and the fifth density, the densities of love and of wisdom. But when they get to the sixth density, where love and wisdom must be balanced, that all must be seen as one, that every other self must be seen as a self, there can no longer be any separation. And at that point, the negatively oriented entities, which are also part of the creator, switch polarities. They don't have to go back and start over, because as Ra said, their power is the same as ours. The one infinite creator blinks neither at the light nor dark. They're all part of the creator. So the negative entities, when they get into the sixth density, they're wise enough to see we cannot go any further, seeing a separation between ourselves and others. So they switch and become positive. And then at mid-sixth density, both the positive and the negative sources that are now positive drop all polarity. So that after the mid-sixth density, polarity is no longer a concept that is used to graduate or to polarize. All the polarization is done at that point. And then you use your understanding to be of service to others by reaching the hand back, figuratively, shall we say, to be of service to others, as the positive polarity has always done. And as the negative polarity has now learned is the way to go.
Well, this would be a great time, Jim, if you quite remember those percentages of polarizations that third density beings need to attain in order to polarize either on the positive side or on the negative side. I think it would be great to share.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, for the positive, it's 51% of all of your thoughts and your actions and your deeds and words are positively oriented. In other words, you're trying, your intention is to be of service to others. That's just enough to point the compass, to sway the balance, and to go forward into the fourth density. Negative polarity is a little harder because it's based upon an omission. It's based upon the heart that sees everyone else as worthy of love, to love and serve each other. So that omission makes it a little harder to polarize negatively. The negative entity has to be 95% successful at separating itself from others so that it can control them and manipulate them and take their power. And these others that are controlled are willing slaves of such entities because they know that's their path too. They're learning from their teachers how to do this to others. So that's how the negative path goes forward. However, Ross said it has a problem with spiritual entropy, they call it, because they are not unified in their service to each other. Their energies of control eventually begin to wane or dissipate. And they find that they must work individually. They're not so successful as social memory complexes, although they are successful as far as we would judge it, and looking at other negative planets. So they have to work a lot harder at it, but eventually they also go the positive route, and eventually the positivity and polarization is also dropped as a tool. And the unity of all things then becomes the reality of all entities.
Yeah. And what I always found fascinating is even to polarize negatively, it's so difficult, but there is still this 5% of service to others, right? It's not just a full, like you're never going to not be providing this service to others. And then it's also, it's really beautiful the way all of this is designed, because once you get to the mid of the sixth density, all of this is, kind of gone by the wayside. So there's just this progression that we need to make. The other thing I really love is that the intention is the big piece here. And with intention, I've learned you can't lie to yourself, which is something many people may struggle with is, I just intended to be doing good here. Or maybe you're saying, I'm going to just pretend to intend for my action, my words, or my deeds to be of service to others. But I've learned through some of my meditating experiences and some of my spiritual experiences that you can't lie or you can't pretend on that intention. And so it may seem like, all you have to do is have the intention, but it needs to be like a legitimate, right, honest intention for it to for it to work that way. And Jim, 51% doesn't seem that hard. So why is graduating so difficult for us, right? Why are we stuck between 95% or between 5 and like 50%? It's where it seems many people are as far as polarizing to the positive part, right? Well, many of us, I shouldn't say 5. Many of us are stuck between 6 and 50%. Because if you're at 5, then you're negative. But at 6, okay, that's enough to kind of shift you towards the positive. But you're not reaching that 51% threshold. So what gives with the 6 and 50%?
Ra calls that the sinkhole of indifference, where the life is looked upon as what you do in the workaday world. You get a job, a good job, hopefully well-paying, that your family is supported, you become a member of the community, and you don't look too much further. It's an inability, apparently, to utilize the pre-incarnative choices that our subconscious mind bias in a certain way so that we look at the events of the day in a certain way. Ra calls this catalyst. Our interaction with others can become a means by which we grow. And this catalyst then usually comes in the form of some sort of disharmony or misperception or lack of desire to partake. The catalyst isn't used. It's not processed. It's food that's not eaten. And so we don't grow in the way that we had hoped to do because we have been, you might say, mesmerized, hypnotized, or enchanted by the world around us. We think that a good job and a good position in the community and a nice car and a pretty home is the end of it all, even though we may go to church, and mouth the words. Sometimes it just doesn't seem to work. And that is where those entities that probably would not make the harvest will once again on the other side of the veil say, okay, well, I didn't do it quite right there. They will review their lives with their guides, say, well, I missed this opportunity. Now I need to try again on this planet here. So then there will be another effort made, and eventually they will do all of that. They will discover a spiritual path on another planet, and they will polarize positively, and they'll begin their progression through the densities. And at the end of it all, we will all be one once again. And as we become the one creator, we'll say, remember that time on Earth? Yeah, that was a tough one, but hey, we made it on the next one, so.
Yeah, the reminisce. I certainly look forward to that, or doing it again, because by my understanding, this isn't my first go around on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've all been here a few times.
Man, Jim, we've talked about so much. This has been an amazing conversation. We started off really trying to make sense of the one infinite, sounds like a paradox, creator. And I think we've done our best to really express how we each understand this. There have been a lot of similarities, some new enlightenments and illuminations. And then we also talked about, this whole polarizing aspect that is really part of the third density, which was a willing choice we all made to partake in, the benefits of it, and how eventually helping see that this one creator is everything and expressed in everything can really help us propel forward. And I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add for us as we're about to conclude this conversation that you think would benefit us here, Jim.
Well, I would just remind everybody that it is the intention that you have on your spiritual path to be of service to others. You don't have to be able to accumulate a lot of money or gold stars or anything like that. It's just your intention, opening your heart in others, to others, seeing others as the same as yourself, as what Ra called your other self, because we are all part of the same self. And just realize that you are traveling the path that is yours to travel. And your spiritual journey doesn't have to look like everybody else's. It can be unique. In fact, it's going to be unique. And that's the way it is. We are all unique entities. And your path, all paths lead home to the one infinite creator. So just keep doing your best, open your heart, and love every other self that you see.
I love that. Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming again. Guys, if you're listening and you're finding this valuable, just FYI, if you reach out to llresearch.org, there's a trove of information, spiritual information that can be additionally beneficial for you, that Jim has been working on way back with his partners who are now on the other side, Don and Carla, and he continues to do this with Austin, Trish, and I forgot the other person.
Gary Bean.
Gary. Tell him, please don't be mad at me. But anyway, this information is all available on llresearch.org, and I will have links to the website in the notes section of this podcast. Please check them out. And also, if you can, please get a copy of the latest release of the Raw Contact 2 books, Volume 1 and 2. I have mine here, and I've been reading this. They're such fascinating information. And Jim, I like the way you said this. I know you read my book, and you said my book was like the simplified version of this.
Yeah.
So if you're reading this and you find it difficult, go ahead and check out Who and Why You Are, all you need to remember. And by all means, reach out to any one of us. And at this time, I can only say thanks for listening, and I invite you to create an amazing day. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor to talk to you all. Love you all.